It may be hard to believe because of how omnipresent they are in our current lives, but plastics are a really new invention. A quick Google search will tell you that the first synthesized plastic was created in 1907. More in-depth research, and by in-depth research I mean opening up the respective Wikipedia article, will tell you that a majority of the current plastics that we use today, from household names like polyester to Kevlar, were invented in around the 1950s and 60s. Which, if you didn't know, is actually why these decades get associated with things like Tupperware. Basically, we figured out plastic around the time we sent someone into space, which is crazy when you consider how all-encompassing plastics are in our current lives. Just this year, 400 million metric tons of plastic were produced, and the product dominates markets from clothing to iPhone making. It is no exaggeration to say that this is arguably the most successful invention in human history. And if you don't believe me, just check out how many things that you have are made of plastic. I mean, this is plastic, these are plastic, this is plastic.
This entire setup is at least like 60% plastic.
I touched grass with plastic. My friend's personality is basically plastic. Basically, the modern world runs on plastic. And sadly, plastics are pretty new to nature as well. Approximately 19 to 23 million tons of plastic are dumped into the ocean every year. And when fish try to eat that plastic, I don't think I need to tell you that that's not a good idea. It also directly affects us via a bioaccumulation. But, you might be wondering, if plastic waste is such a big problem in the world right now, why don't we just have global initiatives to, just pick them up? And believe it or not, this is not a bad idea. For large chunks of plastic, like this or this, we already have plenty of global initiatives designated to picking up this waste from our ocean. And for rivers, streams, and other localized waterways, private startups and STEM researchers alike have shown incredible promise in the development of new pollution clearing techniques. Frankly, if this is all that we have to deal with, then the future of plastic cleanup is looking pretty bright. But as you may have guessed from however many minutes are left in this video, I don't know, I'm still making it. Post-editing Showbit will tell you. Post-editing Showbit here, roughly 4 minutes are left in the video. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Increase my watch time, and back to you, pre-editing Showbit. Things are sadly not this simple. Because a majority of plastics in the ocean don't look like this. They look like this. The reason I'm cutting up these plastics in such small pieces is because I want to demonstrate two properties of these materials that, in general, most of them share. First of all, plastics are super soft, at least physically. I was basically able to cut that piece of plastic with just some scissors in my bare hands. That's frankly something I can't do with an aluminum can. And if my measly human hands and some scissors can do that to a piece of plastic, imagine what this can do. Long story short, when a big piece of plastic enters the sea, it's going to go through a lot of changes. The second thing I wanted to show was that you can make these plastics really, really, really small. I mean, it's possible you might not have even seen me holding the plastic at the end. I mean, I certainly had a hard time looking at it. And in the harsh conditions of the sea, these things can get even smaller. Microscopic even. Scientists have given plastics like these, specifically ones that are less than 1 millimeter and cannot be seen with the naked human eye, the very, very creative name of microplastics. Hey look, it's the title of the video. Microplastics that are formed when they're broken down from larger materials, like I just described, are called secondary microplastics because they form from a primary macro source. There's a couple of reasons why we care about these microplastics and why they're such a problem. One, probably the most obvious. Unlike with macroplastics, microplastics can't just be picked up. I mean, they can't even be seen, so good luck trying to deal with that. And while there are ways to filter out these plastics, these methods aren't implementable on a large scale. Which means the only way to deal with this issue in the long term is to chemically break down these plastics. Which leads to our second problem. They're plastics. Let me explain. Plastics are a type of molecule called a polymer, which is a large, complicated molecule composed of multiple chains of repeating subunits called monomers. Think of me as a monomer. A single me is not going to cause that much audio distortion in a video. Repeating my audio over and over and over and over and over and over. I think you get the point. Think of each single video clip as a monomer and think of the whole video with its very cursed audio and cursed video quality as a polymer. There are many different kinds of polymers, and so there are many different kinds of monomers used to make those polymers, and here are some common ones shown for various different kinds of plastic. Each polymer is composed of thousands of monomers, or if we're going by the video example, each video is composed of thousands of little clips of me talking and distorting the audio. In fact, just to give you an idea of scale, one molecule of polyethylene, which is a very common plastic, which is being shown on screen right now, is approximately 3,000 of these miniature subunits. For reference, one molecule of water is one subunit, and that subunit is this big. Now, this really tells us two things about the molecule. The first is that it's really, really, really big. What this really tells us is that the molecule has a large number of bonds, so even if there is a way to break these bonds down completely, it's still going to take a while to completely break down the molecule. But the second and probably more important thing is that the large size tells us that the molecule is incredibly stable. I think I emphasized this a little with the water example, but molecules usually do not get this big. This is why you don't see plastics spontaneously forming, out there. Plastics have to be made synthetically in a lab. And when they are made, the bonds between them have to be incredibly strong. Otherwise, they just won't get that big. That's why if you look up how much time it takes for a plastic to dissolve in a landfill, you're going to get a crazy number, like 1 million years. Because they're large, stable, and synthetic. So nature doesn't really have an answer to breaking them down. Or does it? Not gonna lie, that looked a lot better in my head, but we move. Various teams of scientists have discovered new species of bacteria that live in landfills that are able to break down plastics completely by generating enzymes to do so. One of these bacteria, called Ideonella saccharensis, can create an enzyme from its flagellum that breaks down the plastic PET. With little genetic modification, this enzyme can and will be viable for commercial use. Like Ideonella saccharensis, we've discovered several new species of bacteria with several different plastic-destroying enzymes. The future of plastic disposal doesn't look quite as bleak as we think. Nature has once again given us the tools and the inspiration to solve our problems. All that's left to do is to use those tools and inspiration and combine them with our own intuition, innovation, and intelligence. And show that humanity can overcome this dire threat. Or we could all just die. That's an option too.